Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our DTUC webinar on modernising the workforce for the AI era with Dell and IDC. My name is Michelle, the DTUC co-manager and product messaging lead at Dell, and I'll be your host today for this much requested webinar. Of course, this is a huge topic. When we've asked you, our DTUC members, about AI, we uncovered that nearly half of you expressed high levels of apprehension towards it, despite its recognised potential. And those findings really reveal a gap between the perception and practical implementation, highlighting the need for today's discussion and subsequent discussions on this. So to everyone here who does give us this kind of feedback in things like our post-event surveys and in our research, thank you so much. You really do help to shape the agenda for all of our content topics, and that includes this one. So today we will explore key AI areas that you've called out, such as automating tasks, enhancing cybersecurity, personalizing products, promoting sustainability. We also resoundingly hear that you'd like us to maintain a balanced perspective. And we acknowledge the importance of tempering the hype surrounding AI with a realistic understanding of its capabilities and limitations. And as one member correctly told us, AI should be viewed as a powerful tool that complements human intelligence and not as a replacement for it. So let's dive deeper into these things. We'll be exploring IDC's insights and how Dell Technologies is leveraging generative AI to meet evolving business needs. Before we begin, could you please just keep your microphones muted? Feel free to use the chat for comments and questions. We'll try and get to as many of them as we can. And now let's hear from Maria and Amy, our panelists. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure thing. Thank you so much, Michelle. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Renton Abu. I am the Global Messaging Lead for AI Client Software and Solutions here at Dell Technologies. I've been working within the AI space for about four years now, and it's just so amazing to see everything get fast-tracked. One year you're talking about digital twins, the other year it's the metaverse, and now it's all about all of the above, generative AI. So I am really excited that Dr. Amy Loomis is here to join us. Amy is a research vice president for IDC's Worldwide Future of Work Research Service. Dr. Loomis has been covering, the growing influence of technologies for so many years, things like artificial intelligence, data science, robotics, all of these providing research and insights on how these influence worker skills, how these influences behavior, and most importantly, organizational culture. So let's dive right in. Let's kick it off. Amy, can you give us an overview of how the impact of generative AI to the world at large so far?
Yeah, and I think that's a huge topic. We could be here on that question alone for an hour. Promise not to do that. But thank you so much, Maria. I'm going to begin tackling that question by talking about this prediction that IDC has, which is that organizations are going to spend $346 billion on products and services to implement Gen AI between now and 2027. And, before we know it, that's going to have taken place. One of the things that I think people don't quite realize is the speed with which Gen AI and AI are getting embedded in the products that we're using every day. So it's not simply, a new software that's coming along and people are making purchasing decisions based on that. It's also a new technology being embedded in those technologies that we know and love so well and use every day. And that includes hardware, it includes networking, it includes software. So that's where you're getting that 346 billion prediction from. And we've really done a lot of research into market trends and CAGR growth for that to be able to come up with that number. So that's from an investment side. That's one of the areas where, we're going to start to see the difference starting now.
That is such a huge number, especially for the span of 3 years. Next question is how is Gen AI currently being used in the workplace with much of these investments so far predicted?
Yeah, and I think the question's really valuable. And if we can go to the next slide, I can show you some examples. It really is one of those things where you start to see it manifest and you say, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. So I've worked with a number of end user clients on their use cases, and the one that's captured the most amount of interest off the bat has been content creation. So we see this in creating avatars. We see this in creating art. We see it in creating first drafts of, say, a press release or a marketing campaign. We see it in terms of creating music and putting music and images together with text to really automate a lot of the work that gets done in, for example, the retail sector, or looking at it from the standpoint of how we generate descriptions of products for other sectors, be that pharmaceutical, be that, oil and gas. There's all sorts of examples there. And then following that content creation, there's automation. So you think about it in terms of how you do the mechanics of workflow, scheduling, looking at building out the algorithms that will be used to analyze the algorithms, right? So the AI is in charge of automating the AI. And it's not just learning how to do new searches, but it's, as your introduction mentioned, it's humans and AI together. So learning how to help humans make best use of this tool. And one of the ways that we're seeing this is bringing the Gen AI capabilities into the very applications and across the workflows as a learning tool. So doing gap analysis. Do people get what they're looking at? Do they have questions? We see that a lot with looking at digital adoption platforms as an example, but also building into other software areas. And this is where data optimization comes in. I think this whole plethora of unstructured data, we're at the 90% of data being unstructured. What do we need to do? We need to optimize it. We need to be able to augment and isolate the data that's valuable from that that's not. We need to use it to drive better personalization of the experience, understanding what the predictive next best steps need to be. And of course, last but not least, code generation and development. That's another use case where we're seeing AI and Gen AI in particular getting put to work so that you can have recommendations on first passes of that code development, looking at it from the standpoint of saving hours. If you think of having something written in one language, say, Python, and then translating it over to R or something else. So these are just a few of the examples, and I could go on and on, but I'll stop there. The main point: trust. If you don't have trust in what's being created, in the validity, veracity, and the variety of the data that you're getting, then the value is undermined. So I think it's really important that we start having those critical human skills, and not just trust blindly what the AI is producing. That's meant to be a first draft.
No, definitely. I mean, one of the main things when I'm asked about AI, I'm actually not afraid of the technology itself, but the people, controlling, manipulating, optimizing the data. You've spoken a lot about the impact, but what is the Gen AI impact on workforce transformation specifically?
Yeah, and these numbers have not changed. We've got even more recent survey data that's just coming out in this next week, and really what we found is that hesitancy that the audience was talking about earlier around losing jobs. And we're going to talk a little bit later on with some data that I have around this, but it's not so much that we're losing the jobs, is that the jobs are evolving. And what you do within those jobs is changing. But, that's 45% of workers that are concerned. Now, this speaks to both trust in the degree to which the AI is going to be able to do this work effectively. And, the data shows that, yes, for those low level repetitive tasks, it is very effective. But in order for it to be successful, you need to have IT support, right? The mythology of low code, no code is that you open the box and you don't need to read the directions, right? But you do. And having that IT support to recognize where the breakdowns are in terms of prompt engineering, or in terms of the technology that you're using, the security of the data, where it's coming from, the integrity. And without training, and we see this over and over again, you need to have training and skills development side by side with AI. They don't work one without the other. And in fact, AI is being used in the training applications as well. Then there's also the challenge of making the business case, which I think is a fairly small challenge. I mean, right now, the business case for Gen AI is extraordinarily strong as far as, productivity, saving hours, getting work done more effectively, provided that you have that level of human critical judgment involved. But I think that organizations that invest in the infrastructure and have that foundational requirements in place have a lot to benefit. They just, you can see only 10% say that they're not facing challenges. So you need to address all of these things.
Yeah, no, that 10% is still very surprising to me, personally. I don't, I think there are so many challenges, and you're absolutely right. AI, it's not an off-the-shelf product. There are many customers that we talk to here at Dell Technologies. They don't know where to start. Their data is not even fully digitized yet. So how are we going to take that and automate? How do we go about cleansing the data so that it's ready for Gen AI? And you talked about this a little bit, Amy, but one of the main challenges you spoke about is privacy and security. Can you talk more about that? What are the certain guardrails that organizations need to look after or to watch out for, or need to put in place?
This material really speaks to how automation has happened so quickly. I think we've lost sight in some cases of that security concern in the speed to adopt and automate our work. But if you have something that it has poor integrity, you're just going to be doing some process or sharing data with poor integrity faster and more pervasively. So you don't want to do that. So I think that as we automate, we need to keep pace with that as far as the integrity of the data, integrity of the workflow, the security of the processes, and looking at how human judgment around context awareness plays a role here. The data you're seeing on the screen now is looking at the momentum that we've seen in adopting that automation technologies. And the reason I wanted to share it is really to focus in on not just that there will indeed, honestly and truly be positions that are eliminated, but more importantly, those positions may be translated into new ones, and people have a greater acceptance today than they did back in 2021 of shifting to new jobs, including data security jobs, right? And people are more open to, and in fact, there's a huge amount of momentum, as I mentioned earlier, around becoming upskilled. Again, upskilled around using that data in a secure way, assessing the data to be more secure, but also that the processes are not building in any sort of bias. If you think about things like employee onboarding or upskilling, you want to make sure that everybody has that opportunity. And many have pointed to the idea that Gen AI is offering a democratization of access to doing this work, because you don't necessarily have to have as much training as people assumed you did to play here. But you have to have the integrity of the training there. And that allows people to focus on higher value tasks that require greater training and insight into security and privacy and the integrity of the way in which we work. So it sort of shifts us from doing more repetitive tasks that are less, that are valuable, but less valued, to ones that are more valued. And I think in doing that, there's a sense of responsibility in the work that we have to get done.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about workforce upskilling, and there are so many. I think if I just browse through LinkedIn, there are so many classes on prompt engineering, like how do I learn all of this stuff? But do you have innovative approaches that organizations can take to really upskill their workforce?
Yeah, I think that, one of the reasons we've seen the rise of digital adoption platforms be so robust is because it's not just putting all the onus on the end user to go off and take that training. I think that the productivity comes from bringing that insight into the actual application or the workflow. Imagine you've just started your job. Think of all of it that you have to get your, time tracking in. You have to know how to do vacation planning. There are all these different apps. You need to know how to use your laptop and where things are located within that, both physical and virtual environment. So what we're seeing is that if you want employees to be more productive, you have to give them skills in things like data analytics and project management. You need to be able to have them fluent and fluid in using ChatGPT and other Gen AI tools that are assistants that are part of this learning in the flow of work. And if you can do that, you can create much more of a flexible way of working that is focused on the task and not so focused on finding data and people that you need to learn and be more engaged. So your time is better spent on the work that you have to do, and being able to bring that into the overall metrics of the organization as a whole. I think this is one of the things that Gen AI is really good at, because you can be more dynamic in the way that you measure. It's not just classic industrial era, more widgets, better. We've gone well beyond that.
And that's great. It's like, it's just an era of moving forward, is what I feel. You spoke about this a little bit, but if you can give me like just three main skills that are important? I think you talked about project management and data analytics, but what is that third skill that workers, need to have to succeed in the AI era?
Well, certainly the training and security is one, and obviously training in AI and Gen AI. It used to be security was right at the top, and then IT service management was closely behind, communication collaboration. We've seen the skills in AI and Gen AI move to the top now in our latest IDC research. But then understanding how to get best use out of your productivity apps. I think that's a very important part. And that in part is using Gen AI. If you think about how they're embedded, Gemini is an example, or Copilot is an example. Almost every major vendor has some form of AI assistant that they're, using to help you get the best value out of the tool. But again, you need to be aware of the security exposures as well, because sometimes faster isn't better if you're not thinking about where the data is coming from.
Absolutely. You talked about tools. What are the best practices and technical tools for driving AI adoption at work?
Yeah, well, I think no surprise here. We've spent a lot of time on the software, but the capabilities that we are looking for and to get out of AI very much rely upon the hardware that they are running on for compute, for storage, the peripheral devices that give us all that unstructured data. You mentioned AR, VR at the very beginning in the introduction. So these AI capabilities are going to be a key factor as you think about purchasing the hardware, to be able to get access to people in a way that's seamless. Like it feels like we're having a conversation. I hope that's true for the audience as well, that, we have access in a way that takes advantage of all this new hardware technology, but that hardware technology in turn is infused with AI capabilities. So you think about it from the standpoint of noise reduction, you think about it from the standpoint of clarity, of vision, of tracking, of our backgrounds. All of that stuff is generated using AI capability. So while we talk about these things as hardware, they're actually an integrated team of hardware and software. And in the research that we've done on this, you see that those importance of AI capabilities on next PC purchase is 80%. So it's not a secret that these two things are coming together. They're very important for over a third of the organizations that we surveyed, and you can see that even though they're critical and a top factor for a smaller percentage, it's essentially goes without saying only 20% are not seeing that value. And I think if we were to do this survey again, within 6 months, that would probably be down to 10%, because it's becoming more and more apparent that, with great power of AI responsibility, you have to have the right tools in play to get the best benefit. And we're in a new era. I really believe that we are.
Absolutely. I mean, what a time to be alive to just see all of these come to life. And lots happening within the industry too, within the PC industry specifically. So with the recent introduction of AI PCs and, a lot of talk on Windows 10 sunsetting soon, can you give us essential takeaways and guidance on how to effectively work through these transitions?
Well, I think the first step is really going to be focusing on assessing what you have. What is your inventory of hardware? What is your inventory of software? How well are they integrated with each other and integrated between the different applications? And that inventory and that assessment needs to be balanced against, what are your critical needs? What is it that you're going to be doing in the future? One of the things that we've seen, certainly with the peripheral and hardware, and specifically AI, affecting certain roles, certain job roles. So, for example, if you are a developer or you are a designer, you're going to need to have a much faster refresh rate on your PC to be able to keep pace with the requirements and the capabilities. It used to be that everything was sort of, we're on a 5-year cycle. And I remember, and I'm sure many people on the phone can remember, oh, I can't wait, I get a new PC next year, right? It's not like that so much anymore. It's about being outcome based. So the outcome we need to get is this, the tools we need to reach that outcome is that, and the refresh requirements are the following. It's all about driving those outcomes, not about just being on, a mechanized, schedule for when you get what. So I think that's one thing. Do the assessment, understand what tools you need, understand the alignment of the tool with your outcomes, and then look at the management, that product management, and making sure that you're getting the most value out of both the hardware and the software. I think the second thing here that is really important, after you've done that assessment, do you have the critical training in place to have ongoing awareness of the skills you'll need to know, the tools you'll need to get? Because if you don't know what you don't know, it's blissful until you have a very rude awakening. We're seeing that come about in terms of a scarcity of talent with the right skills. That's one of the top concerns that we see from organizations. They know what they need to do, but they can't find the people to do it. So then their choice becomes, are we going to, that's that chart that we saw where you look at, percentage of people who are switching into new jobs or being upskilled or being focused on higher value skills. That's really the purpose there, because it's not going to be, a miracle trove of people that you can just hire and plug and play. It's very much a new world of being able to right size the requirements of your organization to training that is going to be continuous, and not just reactively, but proactively. What are the jobs that are going to be coming up? What are the skills that we need everybody to have? I mean, one example is, HR has to be far more educated in Gen AI and AI because of the implications of using it to review resumes, as just one example. And then I think, thirdly, once you have the assessment in place, you have the educational capabilities. The third is to have the right leadership that understands and can greenlight the investments where they need to be, and to help empower at the department level a better level of collaboration and cooperation, so that the organization is much more transparent in its adoption of AI and Gen AI, but doing so in a way that is responsible, so that that person is not just making technology decisions, they're really making organizational decisions. That's why you see the new role of having a chief AI officer. It's not just about a technology remit, it's also about bringing together and integrating the requirements across the different departments in the organization, ensuring that you have a security layer that does not break when you cross those boundaries, and that they have a common resource in play to support investments that are going to benefit the entire company.
No, that's absolutely that's fantastic. So key takeaways that I'm hearing is, we really need to prepare for AI enabled ways of working. It's a
Mhm.
different way of upskilling now. You have to sort of reassess what the workers of today need to be learning to prepare for tomorrow. Another thing that you said that was really valuable was to really focus on priority business outcomes. You can't, again, AI is not an off the shelf product. You have to know what you want to do with AI and what goals, what outcomes you want to achieve from it. And with that, you have to secure, hardware, software, and services. You have to make those investments to help manifest these business outcomes that you've planned, and really also have the right leadership to help propel everything forward. And if you're looking for an end-to-end advisor, possibly you won't have to look far. Dell is no stranger to AI and machine learning. We actually have been integrating AI into our PCs for about 4 years now, and we offer a comprehensive portfolio offer a comprehensive AI portfolio, right from desk side to data center to cloud, all in one place, all making that very, very convenient for our customers. And these advancements, they're really not just about technology. They're about how we can leverage AI to work smarter, to innovate faster, and to really push the boundaries of what's possible. So again, such an exciting time to be alive. So folks, if you are unsure where to begin, you still don't know where to start your AI journey, consider reaching out to our Dell professional services team. They can help you sign up. We currently have a Dell AI Accelerator workshop. It's a half-day strategy engagement focused on all of the things that we talked about today. Use cases, requirements, upskilling, and processes really needed to help implement a successful to help implement Gen AI successfully within your organization. And the best part about this workshop is we're currently offering it for free. So feel free to reach out. That concludes our chat today. Amy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the valuable insights that you just shared. Folks, let's take these insights, move forward, and just get ready for what's next. Thank you so much. Michelle?
Thank you. And we do have a couple of questions, and I think this will be a really way to round off the webinar today. And I think some of your answers will really nicely wrap up and summarize some of the key points you guys have made. But I'm going to jump in first and address something that came up with our latest DTUC survey. So yeah, I just want to address maybe some of the concerns that our members have been feeling around AI. I think I said in the introduction that nearly half of them expressed a high level of apprehension towards AI technology, and that was rating the apprehension of a 4 or a 5 on a scale of 1 to 5. So I don't know who wants to take this, but what would you say to those people to kind of alleviate concerns?
I can jump in first, and Maria, then we'll hand it to you. I think this is not uncommon to have those concerns, but it's also not particularly necessary. When you think about all of the use cases that are benign, when you think about all of the use cases that are more than benign, they are advantageous to the worker themselves. I think this is an issue of leadership and communication when employees are concerned about it. If they are not transparent about what the strategy is, that's going to breed fear. If they are not able to give good examples of where the technology is helping the company to move forward, but also helping the individual to move forward. And people use this as, well, I will be obsolete. Well, there's a quote that I'm going to butcher it somewhat, but we had an advisory board, and one of the advisors said, AI is not going to come for your job, but the person who understands it better than you do will. And so I think that's the point. You cannot, fear the technology once you get to better understand how it can apply in ways that are going to be useful to the very things that you do today, but also want to do tomorrow. So I see that fear is being generated by, leadership that hasn't taken the time to really assess how to do that communication work, how to implement things like digital adoption platforms or other educational programs that, you know, really make plain the benefits, and also communicate, and we touched on this earlier, what guardrails and governance are going to be put forth in the company to ensure responsible and secure use of AI and Gen AI. So it's about trusting the leadership as much as trusting the, you know, good use of the technology and the systems in place to ensure that, you know, both will be continually iterating to meet the needs of the employee and the needs of the business, and that those should be combined, you know, and echo one another, not isolated as us versus them.
And I absolutely agree. You know, one of the main things that we talk about in this webinar is focus on business outcomes. So a lot of folks within organizations are visual learners. So if you start with, here's the goal, here's why we want you to learn X, Y, Z, here's what we're trying to accomplish through this, you know, it can be faster outcomes, you know, better workflows. We're going to automate, help you organize your email. There's a lot of exciting outcomes that can be made by learning the skill. And one thing that I've also read is that this is an adoption that not a lot of that's going to be easy for a lot of people across the board, whether you are, you know, in the beginning stages of learning AI or, you know, consider yourself an expert.
That's great. And that
we're definitely touch all sorts of roles. I think you make a really good point, Maria. You know, it's not just developers that are doing this. It's every single part of the company is going to be affected. So it's important to be on board and have the resources you need on board.
And that leads really nicely into the next question. So some leaders have struggled with helping our direct reports understand that AI integrated workflows is not an optional future, it's the path we are all on. Do you have any tips on helping them understand where this is the future of business, and in brackets, and the world?
Maria, do you want to go first and I'll follow up?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would go almost on the other side. I don't want to lean into to fear here, but if you choose not to partake and you know, integrate AI within your workflows, your competition is going to do it. You're going to be so left behind. The numbers that we're seeing right now in terms of, you know, faster business outcomes, just improving certain processes within operations, within marketing, within across the board in organizations and departments is insane. If you don't choose to partake in this, you will get left behind. Your competition will get there before you. So again, in terms of tips on helping them understand that this is the future of business, I think it would be worthwhile, as Amy had mentioned before, like take the assessment test, really take the time to educate folks on this is what we're trying to achieve and this is how we're going to achieve it, and go from there. Start with that conversation.
Yeah, and I think here's another aspect of it. We've spent a lot of time focusing on productivity, which is near and dear, of course, to the hearts of many leaders who are trying to, you know, grow their organizations. All good and fine. One thing I think that people, you know, haven't spent as much time talking about is the value of creativity, the value of innovation. And I think when you take some of the repetitive tasks off of the table, when you take those, you know, things that used to take hours happening in minutes, what do you do with that time? It's not about just doubling down and doing more of that repetitive work. It's about freeing yourself up to, as you saw from the data earlier, analyze what's going on, what are the broader patterns. And one of the patterns that we're seeing is there's a much tighter relationship between the employee and the customer. So what does the data tell you about the way the employee needs to work better in order to help the customer have a better experience? So I think that's something we didn't mention, but it's an important aspect of what's changing right now, that EX-CX relationship and the ability to innovate and provide new experiences for both employees and for customers to drive better business outcomes and to competitively differentiate. So it's not just everybody's got AI, they're going to be equally competitive because they're equally automated. It's about how do you work with your employees and value their contribution relative to customer outcomes, that's the company that's going to be really differentiated. There are examples from Ford, there are examples from other retailers that are in, say, manufacturing of clothing. They have ability to invent new products that people didn't know they needed, or new styles of product that people didn't know they needed. So I think that innovation is a really important, and brand awareness is another benefit here. So how do you overcome that fear of this? Nothing like saying our brand is the best in the market to motivate you to embrace what needs to be done to get better educated and communicate with the employees so that people are working coherently together.
Absolutely. I mean, to sum it all up, it's really so learning all of this so you can focus on more meaningful work, take the tedious stuff off of your desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and someone in the chat earlier at the beginning of the session actually said, I agree that AI is enabling everyone to automate tedious tasks and focus on other tasks. It also helps free up time for personal growth tasks. So yeah, that was a great summary. Thank you. I also have someone just asking, this one's for Maria, what's the name of the workshop again? We will send this information out at the end of the session in an email, by the way, but Maria, could you
Yeah, so it's called the Generative AI Accelerator Workshop. It's offered by our Dell Professional Services team.
And we will send that out as part of our member services email that you'll receive shortly. I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions. If there are any, now is probably your time to type them in. If not, then I'll probably start to wrap up. So I'm not getting anything. Are there any closing remarks from either of you, or shall I go ahead and start wrapping up a couple of minutes early?
No, I would just like to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to spend time with us. And we're, certainly very eager to see the progress that people are making, and also to move forward, I think, with this more holistic view of AI that's less sci-fi and more my day-to-day when it comes to work and the future of work.
Absolutely. I think it's more of what you can do with this new technology. It's really very exciting times. We're seeing, the evolution of digital twins, what it can do with ops. I'm excited to get a digital assistant, so I'm more organized in my work. But lots of possibilities here, guys. So I would say to not be afraid of it, but just embrace it and move forward.
Thank you. And yes, and that's all of our questions. I just wanted to thank both of our speakers. Thank you so much, Maria and Amy, for such an engaging session. I could listen to you both talk for hours on this, so thank you so much for joining us at DTUC. And also thank you to all our members. You've been great. As always, it's nice to see such a lively chat happening within our community. And guys, please look out for our survey at the end. Like I said at the beginning, it really helps us to understand what content you'd like from us. Do you want more AI? Do you want to dig deeper into any particular topic that we've covered today? Perhaps there's something we didn't cover. By all means, please let us know. We always want to hear. And I believe there are gift cards up for grabs as well if you give us your feedback. So well worth doing. So yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'll give you a couple of minutes back from your day, and have a great one.